raise it higher. With one in opposition. All right. Did you get the vote, Keith? Okay, thank you. All right. So next is our public hearing on the land use plan amendment and the rezoning. So it'll be probably a combined presentation. All right, I'll recognize Ms. Gardner for that.
The first portion of the presentation, Madam Mayor, will be about the land use plan amendment. This is KDP 82, and it covers all of those parcels that are in blue but highlighted in red at the corner of Brookford Road and Kernersville Medical Parkway on the north side. The proposed land use plan designation is from business center to high density residential. Business center is defined as intended to accommodate a wide variety of employment uses such as office, research, corporate park, and institutional and related uses. It requires a unified design scheme, including enhanced facades on the buildings, substantial surrounding landscaping, restrictive site lighting and signage, full screening of loading areas, and permits no outdoor storage. This area is also in the I-40 NC66 interchange northeast quadrant small area plan, which was intended for corporate park and industrial type land uses. These uses were designated due to the visibility and access from the interstate. The existing commercial and industrial land uses in this corridor, as well as the proximity to the airport, make this land ideal for high quality office and industrial development according to this small area plan. The land use plan designation that is proposed is high density residential, which is a land use that is the primary use for high density rental housing. Located within the triad where we are, the expansion of the high density land use must be carefully evaluated to prevent an oversupply that would undermine the existing high density developments. But the high density areas are intended to be located in transitional areas and have convenient access to major thoroughfares. Staff's analysis of the land use plan amendment is that changing the land use plan is recommended by staff and has been a recommended practice in Kernersville if the rezoning case is approved. We like the land use plan and the rezonings to track together. We find that high density residential is not compatible with the small area plan, as it does not further the goal of encouraging the development of high quality office and industrial uses. Town investment in the expansion of sewer to attract commercial and industrial uses further warrants retention of the business center designation in this corridor. We find that this request does not further the land use plan goal of developing to accommodate a wide variety of employment uses such as office, research, corporate park, and institutional and related uses. And changing designations departs from the historical plan from the area to be business center in order to seek uniform development. This was heard at the May Planning Board. Planning Board and staff recommended denial of the resolution to redesignate the pins shown on the screen and from business center to high density residential, subject to the rezoning case K833. It was a pretty split vote with the Planning Board members, with the majority voting in favor of the denial of the land use plan amendment. Are there any questions before I move on to the rezoning portion? K833 is the rezoning request that is tied to that land use plan amendment. The petitioner is Pamela Thompson, agent for the owners being Robert Douglas Fulp Jr. and Jenny Smith Fulp Revocable Trust and Brookford Properties LLC. The request is to amend amend the zoning ordinance from residential single family 20,000 square foot minimum lot size to residential multifamily 18 units per acre conditional. The requested use is residential building multifamily. The site is just over 21 acres, including all the area in red. Properties around this parcel have a variety of different zonings. To the north is general office conditional. To the east is RS20 and medical business park. Across Kernersville Medical Parkway to the south is RS20 and general business conditional. To the west, adjacent is RS20, and to the west across Brookford Road is RS20 and general industrial. So it's a little bit of a mix out there. The proposed use, residential building multifamily, a residential building which contains 3 or more dwelling units and which occupies 1 zoning lot. This term includes single-room occupancy facilities. The site that has been submitted for consideration with this single-phase rezoning is shown on the screen. Vehicular access to the site is provided by Kernersville Medical Parkway and Brookford Road. Pedestrian access to the site is provided from a sidewalk from Kernersville Medical Parkway. They're proposing 12 residential buildings and 2 recreational buildings. Based on the number of bedrooms, the site requires and provides 588 parking spaces, 68 of which are provided in covered garages. A 15-foot Type 2 buffer yard is provided along the eastern property line, and a sewer connection will require a boring under the West Fork of the Deep River as required by Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities. The parcel is located within the Highway Corridor Overlay District and does have additional requirements for site design, building design, and materials. The crosswalk at Kernersville Medical Parkway, as well as all internal crosswalks, are shown to be of a different material to provide some distinction for pedestrians and the drivers. All of the proposed parking is located either to the side or rear of the proposed buildings, which exceeds the 25% that is required by the overlay district. Cross-connection stub-outs, which typically are required, we discussed those with the previous case, they are not provided in this case because of issues from topography and nearby streams. A 22-foot street yard, including the 3-foot berm, is provided along Brookford Road, and a 50-foot street yard is provided along Kernersville Medical Parkway, which both options are available in the overlay districts. Building design standards have been met through the use of arcades, windows, entry areas, color changes, material changes, and recesses in the building, which gives some interest to the look of them. You can see some renderings on the screen. The windows will meet the requirement through the use of shutters and prominent sills. They're proposing at least 75% of brick for the non-glass wall surface, and the color requirements are conforming with the ordinance requirements. Additional requirements are imposed on the residential building multifamily use by the UDO, which is in the use conditions section, which is section 4. 100 square feet of common recreation area is required per dwelling unit. This results in 33,600 square feet being required. The applicant is providing 40,277 square feet, including a pool, fitness center, clubhouse, and pickleball court. The building also meets the spacing requirements for multifamily buildings in the use conditions, so they did provide an exhibit showing that. We previously discussed the land use plan. It is currently business center, and there is a proposed land use plan amendment for high density residential. Changing the land use plan is our typical practice if the rezoning is intended to be approved. Transportation. So Brookford Road is one of the 2 primary points of access. Brookford Road is controlled and maintained by NCDOT, who did review these plans, and is designated as a minor thoroughfare in the town's transportation plan. Brookford Road connects to Kernersville Medical Parkway and North Carolina Highway 66. North Carolina Department of Transportation is not requiring installation of any intersection or road improvements at this time, as the provided traffic impact analysis does not recommend any. You can see the entrance there on Brookford Medical, Brookford Road with the blue arrow. Then the one on Kernersville Medical Parkway is the other primary entrance. You can see it in blue arrow down at the bottom of the screen on the site plan. Kernersville Medical Parkway is controlled and maintained by the town and is designated as a major thoroughfare in the town's transportation plan. This one connects to Macy Grove Road and North Carolina Highway 66. And the town is not requiring installation of any intersection or road improvements because the TIA does not recommend any. The TIA conducted used 348 dwellings, which is 12 more than they're proposing in their calculations, so it was over-calculated. These calculations result in 2,306 trips per day for the proposal, or 6.63 trips per dwelling unit per weekday. It does not take into consideration additional trips from mail, delivery, solid waste, and other things. This is just residential traffic. The ITE trip generation manual, which provides guidance for determining the volume of trips during specific periods of time, classifies this type of development as multifamily medium rise. And so the expected trips during the morning peak, so the busiest hour of that 2-hour window, would have 131 trips. And the busiest hour of the 2-hour window in the evening peak would be about 170 trips. That's coming and going. The North Carolina Department of Transportation does conduct average annual daily trip counts at specified points on NCDOT maintained roads. Location on Brookford Road is north of Kernersville Medical Parkway and west of the intersection with Brookford Industrial Drive. So you can kind of see that red dot in the image in the vicinity map on the screen in relation to the parcel that is under consideration. The high count for this location was in 2005 with a count of 2,300. The count has gradually decreased over time to a count of 750. We think the reduction is likely attributed to additional route options available with the completion of Kernersville Medical Parkway. Staff does have concerns regarding the grade of the slope entering the property from Kernersville Medical Parkway. The North Carolina Fire Prevention Code from 2018 and the specific code reference shown requires that the maximum slope at the entrance drive be less than 8%. It's just barely there at 7.8%. So staff recommends, if the rezoning is to be approved, that the adoption of a condition stating that prior to issuance of first certificate of occupancy, a certification shall be provided showing that the access driveway off of Kernersville Medical Parkway has been constructed as approved. A sealed and signed as-built exhibit shall be required to be submitted in conjunction with the certification. We want to make sure that if there is an emergency, all emergency response equipment can get there. At the neighborhood meeting conducted prior to the submittal of the rezoning application, the developer was made aware of concerns from the public regarding perceived existing traffic safety concerns at the intersection of Brookford Road and Kernersville Medical Parkway. That's just off the screen, but we gave you a reference point with that orange arrow. One specific issue that was brought up was line of sight limitations affecting some turning movements. I think we've heard this comment across several rezonings in this area over the past few years. The developer found that the stated concerns are existing and not within the scope of their proposal to alleviate, as it is not required by the TIA. As I just mentioned, though, staff has been consistently receiving feedback from the community regarding this intersection. Residents have routinely voiced concerns at public hearings that there are perceived safety concerns at the intersection due to speeds on the parkway, traffic load, and visibility at the turn. The town engineer has reviewed the plan as submitted and the data provided by the applicant and found that the intersection operates in a safe manner and there is no need for changes at this time, which is why we refer to them as perceived safety. What I perceive to be safe as a driver may be very different from what you perceive to be safe as a driver, but we are consistently hearing concerns about this intersection. Our staff summary for K833 is that the proposal is for a single-phase conditional rezoning from RS20 to RM18C with a proposed construction of 12 residential buildings. The proposal is not in line with the goals of the I-40 NC66 Northeast Quadrant Small Area Plan due to the lack of high-quality office and industrial components. The proposal would make fulfilling the goals of the business center designation for adjacent properties more difficult without a commercial component, as the requested use does not further the ability to accommodate a wide variety of employment uses, such as office, research, and corporate park, and institutional and related uses. Lastly, though the TIA doesn't recommend improvements, the developer has been made aware of perceived issues at the intersection of Brookford Road and Kernersville Medical Parkway through their neighbor meeting and has not proposed any improvements to help mitigate these concerns. Planning Board and staff's recommendation is to recommend denial of the application to amend the Unified Development Ordinance of the town by rezoning the property in case K833 from RS20 to RM18C, finding the rezoning is inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan, the Kernersville Development Plan, and further being both unreasonable and not in the public interest because of the following. The proposal is not consistent with the land use plan designation of business center, and the proposal does not meet the intent of the I-40 NC66 Interchange Northeast Quadrant Small Area Plan. Though the TIA does not recommend improvements to the affected intersections, the developer has recognized that line of sight concerns do exist at the intersection of Brookford Road and Kernersville Medical Parkway, Thus, an additional 2,306 trips are not in the public interest because the proposal fails to offer any methods of mitigating these concerns. This was heard at the May Planning Board meeting, and just like the Kernersville Development Plan vote, it was a very narrow margin of those members present voting against recommending approval. So the recommendation was for denial of the rezoning as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
What sort of changes to the anticipated use of Kernersville Medical Parkway have we seen, and why have those changes occurred, you think? I know the previous boards at one time considered that it would consist of medical office and medically related accommodations, and that's not the way it has happened. And that my understanding is that has been impacted by Novant's choice to expand within its existing footprint or close thereto, as opposed to down the parkway. What has changed, if anything?
I think a lot of things about land use changed after COVID in terms of how we work. I think the hospital is also pursuing a new building in the corridor, but it's up towards Macy Grove, and their timetable seems to be changing on that. So yes, they have expanded within their footprint, and then, you know, the additional story on top, and they are considering outpatient and outpatient surgery centers in the area as well that will be separate from the hospital. The rezoning that was approved several years ago for an apartment use did contain some commercial. We've had two in the general vicinity, one on Kernersville Medical Parkway and the other off of Macy Grove behind the VA Center. That also contained a large commercial element. And it was a two-phase for the commercial element, so they haven't come back with their final development plan yet, but they did have, you know, a significant portion of their original rezoning approval that was commercial. So it's a combination of factors. We are looking at this as part of our land use plan, you know, redo, revamp, relook, all those things. And the consultant has identified that this area is changing due to a variety of factors. And I think that when the land use plan that is on the books and we are using in evaluating rezoning cases was originally adopted, you know, the board was interested in pursuing medical and other office uses along this corridor and had been for some time. So we have made recommendations in line with our existing land use plan as staff.
It seems like to me that we may be, in one regard, trying to slip the foot into the shoe, and the foot has changed. You know, I mean, it's just not, I don't know that our plan can necessarily or should necessarily drive uses that the development community, you know, sees more optimal at this point. That's just a comment.
We still have the rest of the public hearing to go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Any other questions, quick questions for Ms. Garner? All right, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. It's a combined public hearing on the land use plan amendment and the rezoning. Again, items D, zoning docket K, KDP 82, and E, K833 regarding this property at north of Kernersville Medical Parkway and east of Brookford Road. So I do have several speakers signed up to speak. First, I'll recognize Marcus Wiedauer.
See if I can do this right the first time. Marcus Wiedauer again, 8830 Macon Highway, Athens, Georgia. I believe we have a presentation. Do I just... Oh, Thank you so much. Again, Marcus Wiedauer. I represent Hill Point. I get the opportunity to go around and talk about what we do, how we do it, why we do it. Hill Point is leading the country in providing quality workforce housing to what we call the essential workers. We are the number one developer of workforce housing in the country. Our singular mission is to deliver critically needed, attainable housing. What you have is you have people that come out of college, young careers, police, firefighters, nurses, young professionals who have two options. They go into a luxury product that they're used to living in, maybe in college, and cannot save a penny to attain home ownership, or they're going to go into a 30-year-old project or a product that is not well maintained, not kept up because they're trying to save money. We hit that missing middle on 100% of our projects. We do it for the missing middle, the essential worker, workforce housing. A lot of people have different names for it, but what this really is you have a group of people that are making too much money to be in subsidized housing, and they're not making enough money to live in a luxury product and save money to inevitably obtain home ownership. We do that through vertical integration. We are the developer, we are the builder, we are the owner-operator and the long-term owner of these properties. This is our product is a bread and butter product of a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, dual master, so you don't have arguments over who gets the bigger bedroom, who gets the privacy. These are Class A apartments. Again, we hit 80 to 120% AMI in all of our product. We manage, that number is actually closer to 15,000 now. Like I said, we out of 50 developments operational, we have only sold 5 ever. And the only reason we sold those 5 is we were in a market already. And we like to come to a community and stay and get to know the community. Point Grand is what we build under. You'll see a Point Grand flag on the product, but Hill Point being the parent company. These are quality units. You'll see some pictures. I'll flip through them very quickly, but we have dog parks and fitness centers and solid surface countertops, high-tech abilities. We provide the Wi-Fi to all our units. These are keyless entry, solid surface countertops. This is our clubhouse. There is a cafe, there is a conference room where young professionals can reserve space, operate meetings from there. You see the conference room up there, the cafe. Being the owner-operator, we've evolved our amenities. We used to have freestanding cabanas around a pool. We built them into the back of this clubhouse now so that we can maintain them properly. They don't wear out, they stay nice over time, and you can come right down to the pool, pull that curtain back, and have some privacy with your friends if you'd like. Folk Fitness Center for the folks that need it. We used to have a yoga room in here, and we actually realized that we had so many pet-friendly people, we actually changed the yoga room into a pet spa. You'll see that in a minute. Not as many people were doing yoga as they were washing their pets. So we do fire pits, pickleball courts, EV charging stations. There's the dog park and the dog spa. I mentioned we brought in commercial washing equipment, so you don't have to wrestle your animal into your shower. Again, these are the inside of our units. Everything tile backsplashes, like I said, solid surface countertops. We, in some cases, will do furniture packages. We really would like to be part of the community and serve the medical industry that's in that area, the young professionals. These are people that need places to live that are being priced out of being able to obtain home ownership one day. That is our singular mission, and I'll invite Pam Thompson up to get in a little more of the details of the actual reason.
I'll recognize Pamela Thompson at this point. You could restate your name and your address, please, Ms. Thompson.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can move the microphone
I
down.
can move it down. I just
Absolutely.
realized it was wireless. Thank you for the technology. Good evening, Mayor and Aldermen. I'm Pamela Thompson, 157 Sweetwater Boulevard, Brunswick, Georgia. I'm the Director of External Affairs, and our Hill Point team has worked closely with your community development staff and your other division directors, department directors to make sure that we are providing you the best quality development and community for workforce housing. We believe this is a good transitional area for this product and community, and we just wanted to highlight some reasons why. Again, Ms. Garner went over the details of the project. We are requesting a rezone from RS20 to RM18C for 336 high-quality workforce apartment housing units. This is the site plan. There have been some very minor tweaks since this was done to comply with staff comments. Again, we focused on quality, community, and making sure we're a good fit in the area. As was pointed out in the staff report, we meet or exceed all of the site development regulations, including the aesthetic design guidelines, the landscape buffering, the open space requirement. And we believe this is the right housing for the right location. We are near this major medical center. We're on major transportation routes. The goal of housing near jobs is so that our young professionals are close to their workplaces and they can come home to a quality living environment so that they can enjoy the time that they have. Again, this property with this investment would provide an estimated $305,000 tax revenue. Why are we in Kernersville? Our market research shows that it's needed. You can see the current vacancy rate is 6.5%. That vacancy rate could be absorbed into the community within 15 months, which will then lead to a further shortage of workforce housing. Today's two-bedroom base rental in the community is approximately $1,600 per month. Right now, we're projecting we'll come in approximately 5% under that with equal or better quality housing, and we expect that discount or that reduced rate to get even larger in the next 2 years while we construct the property if it's approved. This is, again, a logical transition in this employment corridor. You do want to have quality of life for your residents and employees, and you want to reduce the traffic and long commute times. This meets all applicable standards, as you saw in the staff report. RM18 allows up to 18 units per acre. We're proposing just under 16 units. We've met the overlay district, the architectural standards, and we do have those high-quality amenities as shown earlier. Again, to elaborate on the traffic concern that was brought up at the neighbor meeting of potential line-of-sight concerns, that's a perceived traffic issue. That is not an actual traffic safety issue. Our TIA that we had done by an independent traffic consultant was reviewed by both the town engineer and the DOT engineers, and it was found that our proposed community does not have any negative impact on the transportation system. We do not need to do any improvements to absorb the traffic we'll be creating, and the 5-year crash review found that of those 5 crashes, all were property damage only. For community outreach, we did hold that neighbor meeting. The town code requires 200-foot notice. In an effort to be transparent and make sure the community knew about our project, we actually provided notice to 500 feet out, and the neighborhood meeting had 9 attendees. Of those attendees, no one objected to the use of multifamily apartment homes, 3-story buildings, or our workforce housing mission. Again, nearby, the town has in the past few years approved some multifamily rezoning, and we believe that approval confirms that multifamily is appropriate in this transitional area between major employment and the transportation infrastructure that's nearby. This slide just summarizes our request and why we believe it's a good land use and planning decision for the town of Kernersville to approve the land use plan amendment and the rezoning request. I'm happy to answer any questions, and at this time, if it's appropriate, Mr. Ray Thomas, our local land use attorney, would like to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
I moved to Kernersville in May 1966, started my practice in September of 1966. But the fun began in 1968 when the Board of Aldermen of the town of Kernersville passed something called zoning. Some folks didn't even know what it was. There's been change. A lot of change, not only in the zoning code, Originally, it started out, you had general zoning. That's all you had. Then they had special use zoning. Then we started hearing about problems with water, watershed. The zoning code was involved with that. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And it may take two of us to pick up the zoning book now and carry it anywhere. The point is change. It is referred to the I-40 NC 66 interchange northeast quadrant was passed in 1991. That's a long time ago. Things change. I was involved with Andy Stafford's land, which is called the Stafford Center. It used to be 75 acres of mostly tobacco. Well, you couldn't find, unless it's some sort of weed just growing out there, it's changed. It's at least 3 motels. Of course, Dario's, Wendy's, other things in that area. The area that we're talking about involving the hospital, that started about 20 years ago. The hospital is 15 years old. One thing you need to also remember, about in the middle 80s, 1980, there was 50 acres located almost in the middle of town. And I know that at that time, the chief of police would go out there and shoot birds, starlings. It was nothing but woods. And the folks over at Forsyth Memorial Hospital decided that they wanted to move out of just their site in Winston-Salem. So they bought that property. On that property now happens to be the library, the new library, a bank, and many doctors' offices. When I came here, there was 4 doctors, and you had something special, you went to Winston-Salem or Greensboro or High Point. We don't have to do that now. Another thing about a change, particularly with the property that we're dealing with and the plan for it, and you all know that this has had an effect, COVID. COVID almost shut this country down. It changed the way that people did things. Office buildings were closing. Why? Because the employees didn't go there. Where did they go? They were home. They had this thing they called a computer. There's things like the internet. When I came here, I never heard of internet. In fact, I'd never seen somebody, I had clients who later had telephones in their car. That was amazing. It's changed. And so is this area. I think one of the things that I would say to you is that it was a business center, but business centers have changed. They've changed a lot. I have a son-in-law, and I wonder sometimes how they exist, because he works from home. He does not work in an office. If we're looking at other types, if you go to looking at industrial or heavy industrial, well, I think that's maybe a little bit more than you would want to put there. Their main point, Hill Point's main point, and one of the reasons they're here is because of change. When I came here, Kernersville had their own water and sewer, such as it was. And some thought it would be better if the town was going to grow and to provide the right kind of service to terminate that situation and go with the city-county utilities. So now, one of the reasons the hospital is there is because of water and sewer. And it's run by the city-county utilities, and they're capable of doing it. Otherwise, we might still be going out back to use the bathroom rather than with the system that we have. There's also been change for some of you that have lived here long enough. When I moved here, there was a 4-lane highway called 421. Then they changed the name to 40. Then they changed the name to Business 40. And now we've got the Salem Parkway. That's a change. And it seems that the traffic on that may be just like 40, which is close to our property. It's change, and I think the board needs to consider that as something that that this area is changing, and it's changing fast. One other item. And back, by the way, when I started the zoning here, we didn't have time clocks. We got to talk as long as we wanted to. But that was stopped. Next thing is
You got 3 minutes, Ray.
extraterritorial. Pardon?
You got 3 minutes.
Yes, sir, I can see that. Extraterritorial jurisdiction. That's a change. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, the legislature has taken into their hands. They decided that municipalities no longer had the freedoms they used to have. There were conditions, but now it's pretty much if the people that are being annexed volunteer or agree, then you can do so. It's just like tonight, you've annexation. But if they don't agree, then the town is stuck. I would say that one of the things you need to consider, usually it's an out-of-town developer, not always, that comes in, and if they're looking at property that is in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, then they're the ones making the move, just as my client is making the move. And because of their wanting this property, they have to bring a zoning case. And part of that zoning case is annexation. If they didn't, any property that the town of Kernersville has extraterritorial jurisdiction, they get not one dime of tax. It's a consideration. And there's a lot of the property that is in the ETJ that it'll never change because there's always something already on it when it was put in that jurisdiction. And one other thing that I think as far as I know, up to this point, there has been no opposition from the public as to this project. None. And I think that's because they see change. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thomas, thank you for your service on the Utility Commission as well. Thank you for your service on the Utility Commission. Okay, there is 11 seconds left for proponents. So if there's anyone who'd like to speak in favor, who can speak quickly. All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Please come forward, and if you can say your name and your address. So we're to opponents.
My name is Ann Johnson. I live at 803 Glengate Circle in Kernersville, North Carolina. And I have a comment. I need some understanding first. In the presentation, did I hear something about the slope of the entry and egress to the property, or was that?
Yes, that was
Okay.
there's two entrances, so that would be from Kernersville Medical Parkway.
Okay, and was there one about the concern with the emergency vehicles being able to get in and out?
We'll let the Community Development Director address that after you finish your comments.
Okay, if that is the case, my concern is for the 300 and odd number of residents that will be living on the property. I don't think that the town of Kernersville should spend their resources paying for the improvement on that property. I think that the developer should have to foot that cost. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And hang on just a moment. Mr. Hooker, did you get the spelling of her name? Because she didn't sign a speaker card.
I believe so, but could you spell it?
Ann, A-N-N, Johnson, Johnsson.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All right, Ms. Garner or Chief Tilley? I'm sorry, Chief Alderman.
We would require that the entrance be constructed per the adopted fire code. So that's why in the alternate motion that you've been presented, that if it is to be approved, that the developer has their engineer certify that it meets that before we issue any certificates of occupancy, because we want to ensure that access is possible.
Okay, if you could address the slope there.
Yes, so the state fire code requires the percentage, and they do, based off the plan design that we have received so far through the review, they are just below it. So we just want to make sure that through that process that it is in compliance and that they certify that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions well, wait a minute. Let's not get out of order here. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Any other questions of staff or anyone in the room?
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Sabanis.
This is a question for Chief. The location of this property, what zone is that for our police department? Is that zone 4? And what is the average response time currently for zone 4?
Right now, zone 4 average time is right at 8 minutes.
Okay, so adding more homes or residents might negatively impact that response time because of traffic?
Yes, it very possibly could.
Okay, and do we have any sort of information about how, like, how many households generate a certain number of calls? Like, will the call volume substantially change? Do you happen to know?
I couldn't give you a hard number, but, you know, the more people you have, the more call volume is going to go up. That's just a natural thing. That's a natural change.
Okay. Yeah, I have concerns about our emergency response times, especially in that area of town, because I know, Chief, that you've been looking for an outpost out there, but it's not happened yet.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead. And speak into your microphone, Mr. Apple.
Let me ask if I may. Are any staffing changes anticipated within the next 5 years at this point because of the types of projects that we're considering here on Kernersville Medical Parkway and Brookford?
We are asking for, I'd like to have 4 more officers, not to go into town manager's current budget, but I think 2 has been approved for this coming up year. And then I would ask for 2 more the following year, because we are getting behind drastically as the population grows.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? All right, any discussion? When we get ready to do a motion, let's do one on the land use plan first, and then one on the zoning case.
I'm sorry. Just to get things moving, I would like to make a motion that we amend the Kernersville Development Plan and the land use plan from business center to high-density residential for properties located along north of Medical Parkway, Kernersville Medical Parkway, and east of Brookford Road in zoning docket KDP 82. Per this, I'll stop there.
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that?
I'm not sure. I'd like to move that we adopt an amendment to the Kernersville Development Plan to amend the land use plan from business center to high-density residential for properties located north of Kernersville Medical Parkway and east of Brookford Road, containing 21.022 acres, more or less, pursuant to zoning docket KDP 82.
And I will second that, Madam Mayor.
Do you want that to be subject to the rezoning approval of case K?
Yes, ma'am.
823?
Yes, ma'am.
And from your second? Okay, I've got a
Yes.
motion. Are some of these PIN numbers not lining up?
I don't think they line up with what Ms. Garner has on the screen. I don't think what Mr. Applered lines up. So I think if he That's the motion to approve the land use plan, correct, Ms. Garner?
Yes, this would be an alternate motion to approve the land use plan.
I think I would withdraw that motion and read that one on the screen because the PIN numbers, I think, on it are different than what you
I'll
read,
be
Mr.
glad
Apple.
to do that. That
Well,
was
and-
my intention.
Mr. Apple did a general description, like in the,
Correct, and I would
but
suggest
it'd probably be
reading-
better if it's
I'll be
according to
glad
the
read
pins.
that. Let me withdraw my motion, if I may, Madam Mayor, failing for lack of a second.
Well, you
And I
did have a
would,
second, so will you withdraw the second?
I will withdraw by second.
So Mayor Pro Tem Gorham is withdrawing the second, you're withdrawing the motion, and I think that same image on that screen is also displaying on the screen at your desk here,
Okay.
if that's
Then
easier
I would
to.
offer, Madam Mayor, then a alternate motion to recommend approval of the attached resolution to redesignate all of the PIN numbers listed in the alternate motion on the screen and a portion of the other PIN numbers from business center to high-density residential, subject to rezoning approval of case K 833.
And I will second that motion.
Is that in order? Okay. We've got a motion by Alderman Apple, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gorham. All in favor? All opposed? It passes 4-1. Keith, did you get the vote? Okay. All right, now we are to the rezoning decision. That's item E on the agenda, zoning docket K 833. Will you use your microphone? That's all.
I'm sorry, it's like I'm just now learning how to use this microphone.
It just keeps moving on you, that's all.
I would.
You need a lapel microphone.
That's right, that's
Yeah.
what I need, yeah. An alternate motion as shown on the screen to recommend amending the Unified Development Ordinance of the town by rezoning the property in case K 833 from RS 20 to RM 18C. Said rezoning being consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, the Kernersville Development Plan, and further being both reasonable and in the public interest because of the following facts. The request will result in creation of entry-level housing for working professionals with convenient access to both employment centers and major thoroughfares. And the proposed site and building design meet or exceed all requirements of the UDO and overlay district. And the proposal is consistent with the land use plan as amended and are appropriate uses in the high-density residential and business support use classification, subject to the plan and conditions as presented in the staff report.
Okay, so I have a motion to rezone,
Second.
and I have a second. All in favor? All opposed? Have you got the vote, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Swisher, anything further on this item? When do y'all plan to start? Hopefully by the end of the year. Thank you. All right, we are to item F, which is a public hearing on the budget, but I'm wondering if everyone would like to take a brief recess. All right, let's take a 10-minute recess. Curtis, are you ready? Curtis, you ready? Okay. Welcome back to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. We are still in the public hearing part of our agenda, but we are to item F, which is a public hearing on the budget, the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2026 and 2027, and consideration of an ordinance adopting said budget. We'll begin with a presentation by our town manager, Curtis Swisher.
Ms. Garner is pulling that up for us. Hard to believe it's that time of year again, but it is here. So
I think the community may not realize how long you work on the budget, and the board works on the budget, and the department heads work on the budget. Really, a lot of intense work on the budget begins as early as January.
correct. The department heads, I think the calendar goes out to the department heads in December or January. They start to work on the budget. They have a calendar of when their expenditures have to be turned into finance. They're usually due to finance by the end of February, 1st of March, at which point finance will just about have the revenues wrapped up with the exception of the ad valorem tax base. We get 3 estimates on that, March, April, and May. This year, it usually is February, March, April. This year, we got one in May. So we put have the revenues wrapped up. I start meeting with the department heads sometime around the middle of March to go over their request. We will then go through the budget, assemble the budget, just as a little background for the folks. And so we do our budget a lot differently than the state does theirs, in that ours is balanced and it's adopted. And the federal budget, the federal government, who really has no budget, we definitely do it a lot different than they do. So it's what we generally do, is what we've done in the last few years, is we take the budget that was approved by the Board of Aldermen. So for this year, we took the budget that was approved by the Board of Aldermen in fiscal year 25-26, which is the one that we're currently in that will end June 30th. We take basically that budget that was approved, we copy that budget over into the budget you'll see tonight, the manager recommend column. Then we take out all capital requests from all the departments. We take out all new employee requests from the departments. And then we make adjustments to what we consider to be committed expenses, like utilities, software contracts. So we make those adjustments, and then we see where we're at with revenue. If we have excess revenue, we can add in some requested equipment, new positions, things like that. If we don't, then we have to go in and look at changing up some things that are in the budget. So that's kind of the budget process. I will meet with you all usually sometime about, I think this year I met with you all 1st of May, somewhere right in there, 1st of May, 2nd week of May. We are required by law to have the budget out to the public 10 days before the public hearing. We usually get it out. Those 10 days, we take it to the library. We have a copy here as well, and it's delivered to the Board of Aldermen and advertised as a public hearing 10 days before the public hearing. So this budget went out, I guess, May the 22nd, 23rd, somewhere in there for the meeting tonight. So it is a long process. We started formally in January, but it seems like we started really for next year in about August or September. It's kind of what it seems like, especially with the budget amendments. The first budget amendment of next fiscal year will be to carry over items from the current fiscal year that we're in. So it seems to be just one long process. But in the end, we get it worked out and get things out and get things rolling and get your recommended budget. So with that being said, The proposed budget for this year, for fiscal year 26-27, is $59.7 million. That's a couple of million, about $2.8 million more than the budget for fiscal year 25-26. You'll see why as we go through the budget. Some things down at the bottom here, just to point out the proposed tax rate is 52.7 cents per $100 valuation. An interesting figure to keep in mind is the 55%. Our budget, 55% of the revenue for our budget comes from ad valorem property tax. So the property tax that everyone pays, 55% of that, that's what makes up 55% of the budget, rather. The other portions of the budget, you've got intergovernmental revenue. That's a big portion of that, with sales and use tax being in that. We are projecting about $10 million in sales and use tax. So between the sales and use tax and the property tax, you've got about 70% of your budget made up with just those two sources of revenue. Then we've got some other sources of revenue along the way. I think in total we have about 75 different sources of revenue that we collect throughout the year. The other thing here, and I'll touch on all of these a little bit more in detail, 50.6% of our budget is made up of public safety spending, and public safety being police and fire. So those two departments together make up about $30 million, a little bit less than $30 million of the budget is police and fire. $4.69 million is our capital purchases that we're recommending, with over 50% of that being one piece of equipment, and that's being a new ladder truck for police and fire. Our current ladder truck is about 14 years old, somewhere right in that range, and we're starting to see some wear and tear on that vehicle, a lot of downtime. You know, if the truck's out of service, it's not doing you any good. So we're starting to see some downtime and some expenses in there, and we're projecting that not to get any better. So we're recommending a new ladder truck. As you all are aware, it takes about 18 months to 24 months, maybe longer, to get those. You know, we've got a new rescue truck on order that's been on order now for almost 24 months, I think. So we anticipate the ladder truck taking probably about as long as standard, as far as equipment goes, it's standard equipment on that. So hopefully we get a little bit faster. We also have 4 new positions that we're recommending. We started out with those 3 new positions. You heard Chief Tilley speak earlier about the police officers. Really need 4. We're recommending 2. Those will be filled in January of 27. Community planner for community development to help with the planning, plan review, things like that. And we've added, since the budget message came out, we've added 1 park maintenance worker as well. So we've got 4 new positions. There's also a position in the police department that will be in administration, dealing some with schools, PR, things like that. The money for it is in the budget under full part-time. But I didn't mention the position in the draft budget, but we do have that position as well. I think it's $20,000 a year for that position. So, no, I keep hitting the wrong one. So where does the money come from? The next couple of slides will show a little bit about that. This slide shows our tax base. The projection for fiscal year 26-27, as you can see there, this column is for Forsyth County, these two. We're projecting about a 2.5% increase in our tax base in Forsyth County. So we're going from about $5.2 billion in our tax base to about $5.3. Now, our standard increase through the years has been somewhere around 5 to 7%. Since I've been doing it, I've seen it go as high as 10%. This year, it's 2.5%. That's significant because at 2.5%, we're not taking in enough new tax base and tax revenue to sustain our operations, our daily operations. You'll see in Guilford County, these two, there is no increase in the tax base recommended. That is because there has been a bill introduced in the General Assembly. It's passed the Senate. It's currently in House Committee that says if you had a revaluation in 2026, you're not allowed to use those values until 2027. That impacts Guilford County. We have some significant tax base in Guilford County. FedEx Ground, Amazon Prime, Amazon, Old Dominion Trucking, Epps, those folks are all in Guilford County. Very little residential housing in Guilford County, but we have some significant commercial tax base in Guilford County. I met with you all, told you all the same thing. I can't recommend using the new numbers. We received new numbers from Guilford County. I can't recommend using those numbers because if we account for that new revenue and the bill passes, we can't change our tax rate. So we're stuck where it's at. So about $600,000 in new revenue. So if we budget as if we're receiving it and we do not get it, then we've got to make some adjustments for that $600,000. And I can tell you that's much more difficult than what you think it is. So we're not accounting for that revenue in this budget. So total overall, our tax base, $6.1 billion last year, $6.2 billion this year, and we generate about $459,000 in new taxes at the same tax rate that we currently have. 50.9 cents is our current tax rate. We are recommending going to 52.7 so that we can basically cover our operating costs, our daily operating costs, which I'll cover a little bit more here in just a minute. Oh, all right, here we go. The revenue the town receives, I've covered this a little bit. Again, 55% from property taxes, 24.3% from unrestricted intergovernmental revenue, and then 10.1% from our restricted government revenues. It's what the 10.1% is. It's POW bill money. It's any grants that we receive from the state, from the federal government. It's revenue that comes in. As it says, though, it's restricted in how we use that. We can't use it on anything that we want to. For instance, the POW bill funding that we get, it is restricted to be used for street maintenance, street repairs, sidewalks, new construction, things in that nature there. We can't use it how we would like to. Any of the grants, of course, I mean, they're spelled out when we get that. We do receive quite a bit of grants, quite a bit of state funding in different areas, but again, it's restricted. So if we say that we want to cut that expense out of the budget, then we have to cut the revenue that comes out with it. That's been brought up before. Someone said, well, why don't we cut this expense out and not do this particular project? If we do, then we have to cut the revenue that goes with it. So we don't very often remove those expenses if they're tied to a particular revenue. So here's the kind of the crux of the budget. It's the town expenditures. Where does the money go? As I just said earlier, 50.6% of our budget is police and fire. You'll see that in the two charts. There's the fire rescue, police right below it, 17 million, 13.1 million. Those departments flip-flop back and forth, usually as to which one is the largest. This year, fire department's the largest because of the ladder truck purchase. If PD gets some equipment next year and fire doesn't get some equipment to offset it, then police department may be as equally large next year. The one that's not far behind is right here. It's public services, 18.5% of the budget. So public services, that's things like trash pickup, recycling, street repairs, street maintenance, engineering, snow removal. You know, some years we have no snow removal. We get lucky, don't have to do any. This year, or last year actually, we had some significant snowstorms. Those folks were busy all the time. You know, so all of those things go through public services. And we've got over here on this side the community services. We included public services, parks and recreation, and planning as part of that because they all provide services to the community. They make up 34%. When you take those three departments that provide outward services to the community, they're about 34%. So when you look at the departments we have that really provide those services, it's about 85% of the budget. The 13.6% here, that is our internal operations. That's the ones that don't have a lot of interaction with the public, but it's HR, finance, IT, governing body, and administration. You know, their citizens and their customers are the other employees of the town. So they make up about 13%. They're the smaller budgets, smaller departments. So when folks come in and say, hey, I want you to cut the budget, you need to cut the budget, you need to look at cutting the budget. I'm like, okay, what do you want to cut? Police, fire, public services. That's basically your budget. I'll get to it in a minute to show you a slide of what we consider committed and uncommitted funding that further kind of put some background to that as to how our budget is made up. And this is that slide. Our expenses, you know, this column here, it's hard to see from where you all are. It's hard for me to see anyway. I mean, I don't have my glasses on, so for me to see it's a stretch. But we have the committed operations and maintenance. You have the salaries and wages, and then you have our health insurance, insurance and bonds and things like that. So it's what this shows is this column right here shows our committed operations and maintenance, what it went up this year versus last year. And again, this is those line items and those expenses that yes, we can eliminate, but if you eliminate them, you're getting into eliminating really a service. So I think, and this is not all of them, this is not the full listing of committed operations and maintenance. We just listed out the larger ones that really show kind of some of the increases of where we're at. You know, and every household has seen inflation. Every household's been impacted by inflation. The town is no different. I mean, the vendor, Duke Power, doesn't care whether you're a municipality or whether you're an individual. Your power bill goes up, their rate goes up, we pay it. Our utility bill for 26, 27, we're projecting it to increase almost $78,000 over last year, so about 5%. We're looking at uniforms and accessories and PD and fire increasing 11.5%. Our contracted services, you know, our software, things like that we deal with, banks. You know, when you come and pay us for something and it's a 1% charge, we pay that, just like you do as a consumer when you go pay something at a store. If there's a surcharge on it, we have the same surcharge. We get charged from the bank. We have the other end of it. And the wellness center went up because of our health insurance. And we split it up. We're recommending splitting it up a little bit in 26, 27 to cover the GLP-1 weight loss drugs. That's what it is. That cost us about another $190,000 this year. We're hopeful that as those drugs kind of evolve and there's more of them out there, the cost of them will come down. In general, our health insurance went up about $300,000 this year. So that's a huge increase it's about a 10, 11% increase over last year. That's with the GLP-1 and the regular health insurance. We've been fortunate. For those of you that have been on the board for several years, we've not had much of an increase in our health insurance. This year we did. I mean, we're looking at 10 or 11%. And that is after we changed the plans to the employees and we pass along some cost increase to the employees. We had to do it, you know, to keep our insurance within range of what we could afford to do. Our salaries and wages, we've got some new positions. We also have the developmental pay that you all are aware of, to where we kind of move employees depending on which employees were in the pay study to market rate. So the new positions that we have in there is some from last year that are now in a full year, and the ones that we're recommending this year, it's about $285,000. The retirement system, our contribution to the retirement system went up 1%. It went from 14% to 15, or from 13 to 14, one way or the other. It went up 1%. That cost us about $300 and some thousand. We don't have a choice. We're part of the retirement system. We can't tell the retirement system we're not going to pay it. You don't have a choice. I mean, I guess you've got a choice if everybody wants to go to jail for not paying your contribution to the retirement system, but Short of that, we don't have a choice. So when that goes up, it goes up. Along with that, once your salaries goes up, contribution to FICA goes up. All of that goes up. So it's what this chart shows is that when you take the totals of everything that's in here, right through here, our expenses went up about $2.7 million from 25, 26 to 26, 27. So if we had 400, as I said earlier, $459,000 in new tax base revenue, we're short. No way around it. And I can move some money around and make some things happen and find some money and all that good stuff. I can't find $2.7 million. I tried, promise you, I tried before I recommended a tax increase. I sent it back to the folks sitting out there, guy sitting behind me, said we got to come up with something. So we did what we could do, but it is. And I know the citizens are, and I've got a slide to touch on it, and citizens are going to say, well, you just had a revaluation last year, now you're recommending a tax increase. We are. Unfortunately, our vendors do not care that we had a revaluation last year. If they're going to raise their rate, they're raising their rate. They don't care what the town had happen last year. And that's what's happened. I mean, it is what it is. That's for salaries and wages. Yeah, and you've got 117 for insurance and bonds, 758 for committed operations, and then 200 for health insurance. So that's the totals of all of those. And again, what you see in here is not the entirety of what makes up that category, but that's the ones that we saw increase the most. So again, we changed what we could change to make it work, but there's just no way, short of eliminating a service or short of eliminating an entire department in some cases, there's no way to make up the 2.7 million. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Then if you want to eliminate a service or change a service, again, the three big services, unless you do something to those, you're not going to get it. So that's kind of where we landed as we were working our way through the budget. So we do have a slide, some more, shows what we're doing. I think the title of the slide says it all, investing in Kernersville's future. It shows that we're not wasting the taxpayers' money. We're not recommending something that is a waste of money. Again, we have the ladder truck replacement for $2.7 million. We've got a solid waste truck, basically a garbage truck, $415,000. Why are we recommending replacing that? Because the one we have is about 17 years old. We've got to have a new one to pick up the garbage. If it's out of service and it's down a day, that's a day that we don't provide that service to someone. We will provide it. We've got to catch up the next day or get a truck out of service or backup truck that we hope makes it and goes out. We've got 4 police vehicles plus one for the SRO. The 4 of the police vehicles actually this year we're not funding through the general fund budget. We're purchasing 4 of the vehicles and making this year's payment and hopefully next year's payment through forfeiture funds. That's money that we get from arrest, from drug arrest, things like that. It goes into a forfeiture fund, comes back to us through the state as part of the restricted governmental revenue. And so we can spend that, and one of the allowed expenses is on vehicles. So we're recommending so that we can. If we did not have that option, then we probably wouldn't recommend 4 police vehicles. Somebody says, well, why are you replacing vehicles? You've got brand new vehicles everywhere. We've got about 80, probably, about 80 vehicles in the police department. We've got about 80 police officers, somewhere in there. If we replace a vehicle, if we replace 7 vehicles every year, that's 11 years before we replace a police vehicle. Now, 11 years on an individual car that you drive around is not bad. 11 years on a police car is a long time. That thing's been up and down the road hard many times. It's sat and idled for as many hours as it's ran. The other thing is that probably for the last 4 years, we've not replaced 7 a year. We've done about 4 or 5. So that's extended the life of those vehicles out to about 20 years. Now, if you've got a 20-year-old police vehicle, you really got a piece of junk. I mean, that's just the way it goes. You get in it, you hope it's going to run down the road to the call without breaking down somewhere between here and there. Most of them, you know, they take great care of them. Our officers, one of the perks is they have a take-home vehicle. We have found that to be a lot better because they take pride in the vehicle, they take care of it. That's the only reason they last as long as they do. So we try to replace 7 a year. We get usually 4 or 5. This year we had to get creative to find a way to do it. So we've got some town hall improvements. You know, the board voted last year, the year before last, to put a roof on town hall. Now it's time, we've got to replace the inner gutters and the fascia. That kind of goes along with it. We didn't do it both at the same time. Probably should have, but we didn't. So now we knew we were going to have to do that. We need to do that this year. Otherwise, the new roof is really kind of pointless as well. But we do have a new roof on that. You've probably seen a project going on beside us at the old Patterson Library. We put a roof on that. The interior roof, or the roof that you can't see as well as the outside roof, we put that on there. And then Parks and Recreation, the equipment and upgrades there, we've got some new equipment for Parks and Recreation. Probably 80% of his budget is new equipment. It's not new, it's just replacing a piece of equipment that is old, broke, whatever it might be, replacing that equipment. Good example in Parks and Recreation, I think it's the flail mower. I was out there a couple of weeks ago doing something. Will Mabe was out mowing. I saw him going down the road. The inner tubing of the flail mower flew out in the field as the end of the flail mower. You know, good timing. He's getting ready to put it in the budget, but it's been down for that period of time. I mean, so we get the use out of the equipment the way I've told the board in the past. The garage tracks the downtime. The departments track the downtime. The garage tracks the expenses on each piece of equipment we have. Every piece of equipment we have, if it's rolling stock, we know how much it's cost us in repairs, maintenance. We know how long it's been down. And once that hits a certain point, different vehicles have different criteria, but once that hits a certain point for that vehicle, then we recommend replacing it. Till then, we'll run it until it drops, so to speak. And we run quite a bit of them until they drop. I think Ms. Sabanis asked the other day about the lease on the mowers. You know, after 5 years, we can buy them for $1. The reason they're $1 is because they're a piece of junk if they're still running in 5 years. I mean, it's just the way it goes. So, you know, with this, as you see on this side, you know, the impact it has. Obviously, the new ladder truck, new police cars, that enhances our emergency response. That's always been a priority of this board, previous boards, has been public safety. That enhances that public safety. The new rescue truck that we have coming in does that. Reliable public services, again, you know, we run a trash pickup route every day, with the exception of Fridays, and usually on Fridays they're out running one somewhere, making one up. We've got to have dependable equipment to go out and do that. And then in the community, you know, one of the things that always rates high on people's list when they're looking for a place to move is Parks and Recreation, green space, things like that. So we try to hit those keys, and you'll see a little bit later on, we try to hit those areas when going through the budget and making budget recommendations. So along with that, it's not just what the town does. There's nonprofits in town that they provide a service to the citizens that the town would probably otherwise have to provide. This is a list of the top 5 that the town has funded in previous years and the recommended funding for them this year. These are nonprofits. They provide services, for instance, you know, senior services, Shepherd Center. They provide services to our elderly population that if they didn't do that, the town would likely in some form or fashion have to pick up that service. And I can tell you that it would cost you more to do it as a town than what we're recommending funding for the Shepherd Center for Senior Services, Salvation Army. Chamber of Commerce, they're the economic development arm. They go out and do that. They work in conjunction with myself, with Ms. Garner, to do that. If we had to take over that function entirely, it's going to cost you more than that. So you see that on there. The top 5 nonprofit funding recipients is broken out in occupancy tax and general fund. The occupancy tax funding is specific in how it has to be spent. We can't use it for anything. It's basically spent on tourism development. It's basically what they used to call heads on beds. If you were bringing in tourism, you could use occupancy tax. They've kind of changed it up a little bit in how you're allowed to use it in that scope, but it still has to be used for occupancy tax. The town does receive some of that for Ivy Redmond Park, for the Botanical Garden. We get some occupancy tax funding there. It's on here for us. We took it off because we're not one of the nonprofits. We just transferred over to the town. We make that transfer for the occupancy tax at the end of the year to make sure that we have enough, that we take in enough to fund the nonprofits that have requested funding. And then we transfer over. If we have the amount left, we transfer over that amount to Parks and Recreation. Not been a problem in the past. Last year, we had some fund balance that we transferred over as well. So we do that. But these nonprofits, this is just 5. I think we fund a total of about 25 maybe. As you see, the total from the general fund is $202,000. Total from occupancy tax is $204,000. So the tax rate, again, we're recommending 52.7 cents, which is an increase of 1.8 cents. That's about a 3.4% increase. Everybody always complains and says Kernersville's got the highest tax rate of everybody around. Well, if you can see it, you can see right there that that's not exactly the case. In fact, there's a much more detailed chart in your budget message that has probably 20 different communities in it. We pick up Reedsville, Eden, Thomasville, Lexington, those folks. But you'll see Kernersville, when you compare us to Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, Greensboro, and High Point, with the proposed rates for 26-27, Kernersville's the lowest. We're at 52.7. Winston-Salem just adopted their budget last night. They raised it from 56.7 to 58.9, about a little bit more than what we're recommending. Forsyth County, I don't think, has adopted theirs. Greensboro is recommending 58.3. High Point's recommending 56. The important thing with Greensboro and High Point is they are in a revaluation year. Greensboro's revenue neutral rate, I think, is 48 cents. So they're recommending 58 cents. So they're going almost 10 cents above revenue neutral. High Point's about the same. Guilford County is about the same. So we compare ourselves, these 5 and the other ones that's in the chart, we compare ourselves to communities that provide services pretty similar to what we provide. Now, are we higher tax rate than Stokesdale, Oak Ridge? Stokesdale doesn't have a tax rate. Everybody's higher than Stokesdale. But we're also higher than Oak Ridge, Jamestown, Rural Hall, King, Walkertown. The difference being those folks don't have any of the services. Most of them, with the exception of King, don't have a police department. They rely on the sheriff's department. Most of them, with the exception, I think Clemens has a little bit of one, Walkertown has one. They don't have a fully staffed fire department. We've got 6 fully staffed fire stations. Again, those things cost. They don't provide trash pickup. They contract it out. If you're a citizen, you have to contract out with Waste Management, whoever, Rural Garbage, whoever it may be, to do your garbage pickup. You contract out for your recycling. We provide that as part of your tax rate. We also have parks. We've got community development. If you've got issues with your neighbor, something in your neighborhood, we have enforcement. Those folks don't have that. They rely on the county, or they don't rely on anybody. It just doesn't get done. So, you know, there's a lot of value in being able to pick up the phone if somebody's breaking into your house, calling 911 and knowing that the police officer is going to be there in probably 3 or 4 minutes. If you're having a heart attack, I think our response call on a fire call is about 2.5 to 3 minutes, maybe a little bit less. If you live out in an area where there's a volunteer fire department and you call 911 with a heart attack, you better hope somebody around you knows CPR. because you're gonna be in trouble. I think the average call for a volunteer fire department, average response time is somewhere around 10 minutes, 9 to 10 minutes. If your house is on fire, it's gonna burn down. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's likely to before they get there. We've got, again, stations, different locations, different areas of Kernersville to answer those calls. So it's not fair to benchmark Kernersville against the municipalities that don't provide that. Those public safety, as you've seen, 50.6% of the budget, they cost to have. But that's what the citizens have told you they want. That's what the board has said through the years. That's what we want. So what's the impact? You know, if we raise the tax rate, what's the impact? The median value home has went up to $315,000. Last year it was about $280,000. This year it's $315,000. Tax increase to 52.7 cents is going to cost the owner of an average median home $4.73 a month. So about $50 a year. So about what it costs. If you've got a little bit less value home, if you're in the 250,000 range, it's less than that. We're not recommending as well. The one thing that Winston did that nobody's really spoken about is in addition to their tax increase, they recommended an increase in some of their fees to the citizens. We're not recommending any of that. Now, they may pass one along through the utilities department in the water and sewer, but we're not recommending any other fee increases to the citizens. You know, some of the folks make up a tax increase or not doing one, they'll pick it up through the increase in fees. Still about the same difference depending on how it is, but ours is just a recommendation for an increased tax rate. So a little history, because we've heard it. You all have heard it. I know you've heard it because you all have told me you've heard it. So, and we just had a revaluation. Why are you raising my tax rate? Well, I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons we're recommending the tax increase is because we didn't get the tax rate exactly right last year. I told you last year when we were going through the revenue neutral, through the revaluation. Last year especially, there was no way, with increases ranging from 0%, or even some folks had a property value decrease. It was rare, but it did happen. But ranging mainly from 0% to 140%. There was no way that anybody could recommend a revenue neutral rate and be right. I mean, it's my job, I get it, but I'm just going to tell you there was no way that we could do it and be exactly dead on. So we recommended lowering the tax rate last year from 58.4 to 50.9. So a 7.5 cent tax rate decrease. And it's not unusual, as you can see, that happens some years. In 2001, we lowered the rate to 47 cents, came back the next year in 2002 and raised it up to 49.5. 2005, we lowered the rate to 52.5, came back the next year and raised it to 55. 2009, the revaluation year, it stayed the same. 2013, the rate was lowered to 52.75. It was raised the following year to 54.25. 2017, reval, the rate was lowered to 55.45. It was raised the following year to 57. So 2/3 of the time after reval, the year after a reval year, we recommend a tax increase. And it's because you get appeals that go through, tax base changes, you get depreciation that wasn't caught the year before. All of those things come in and they hit you the next year. That's when you see the impact. So we're recommending the tax increase. That's one of the reasons behind that as well. So kind of wrapping up our budget goals and strategic investments, you know, these three have been the budget goals of the town that we've carried through: public safety, infrastructure, community growth. You see our public safety. We see it in the new police officers being recommended, the vehicles, the ladder truck, things like that. That enhances our public safety. It continues to provide that service to our citizens. And the infrastructure, you know, I didn't go through all of it, but there's infrastructure improvements in the town, dealing with technology for the town. You know, we're upgrading our servers or replacing our servers. We're doing some work here at Town Hall. We're doing some infrastructure improvements at the Botanical Garden. We've got street repairs, street maintenance, sidewalk maintenance. All of that's in the budget. And our community growth, of course, you know, the town now has Botanical Garden, the museum. We're budgeted for those, the operations of those, just the daily operating expenses. Nothing new for them, except for the Botanical Garden, nothing new for the museum, but just the daily operating expenses. And they incur more expenses every year as well, just like every department. So our town's financial condition, you know, that's a key factor in whether or not you can do all this. Our solvency, basically, this is a picture of what our fund balance percentage is as a ratio or a percentage of our expenses. This is our entire fund balance, not the fund balance where we have a fund balance policy. This is our entire fund balance together. It's about 36% of our expenses. So that leaves us in a pretty good situation there. Our unassigned or our unrestricted fund balance is somewhere right around 15 or 16%, which is a policy that's been set by the board, 8% by the state, board's 15%. Our debt as a percentage of assessed value, and this is based on 24-25 numbers. At the time, our assessed value was about 4.5 billion. Our debt was about 18 million. So very low percentage of debt when you compare it to the value. And then our service obligation, this is what we look at, you know, kind of gives us an idea of our revenues compared to our expenditures. In 24-25, we had more operating revenue than we had operating expenses. So that was good. There have been years where that's been flip-flopped. The board spent out more than it took in. We had to appropriate some out of fund balance. But in that year end, fiscal year 25, that was not the case. So some key takeaways from this year's budget. Again, you know, we're in a strong financial position. The board does have some debt. Most of our debt, fortunately, is short-term debt where we finance our equipment and so forth for 5 or 10 years. We've got some longer-term debt. The boards in the past 5 or 6, probably 7 years have approved some infrastructure, you know, new public services building, new Parks and Rec building, new fire station, upgrade to Beeson's Crossroads Fire Station. All of those are in the millions of dollars. So obviously they were longer term debt, usually 20 or 30 years. And so we're retiring some of that, but some of our longer term debt we're still with for another 15 years. We do have a balanced budget that hits the budget objectives that the board has set forth. Again, that proposed budget is a 52.7 cent tax rate, $59 million, give or take, 59.7. And it's a responsible tax rate. Is it a recommended increase? Yes, but we're still the lowest of all the other folks in Forsyth County. That's where we strive to be. When you look at the full chart, I think there were 3 communities lower than us, Burlington, Alamance County, and I think Eden were all 3 lower than us. Eden just barely, they got there this year. All the rest of them were higher than us. We strive to keep that tax rate as low as possible and still provide all of the services to the citizens that the board has said, hey, we want to provide. So that wraps up the budget. Give this guy right here at the top. He's at the top because he's the one that made the presentation. I gave him the information. He made it. It's the intern, Marcus. He's sitting right back there. He did it, and I said, look, man, great presentation. The bad part is the ones I've done now look like something a 5th grader would do. The ones you did look like something a professional would do. So the deal is, next year I email him the budget message, and he has to email me back a PowerPoint. So that's where we're at with that. Be glad to take any questions that the board might have.
Marcus, can you stand up so everybody can see you? Thank you. We appreciate your involvement in the town and your interest in learning more about working for local government as a career. So thank you for being part of this presentation tonight.
And the even scarier part is I think he did it in about 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, it'll take me about an hour to do the first slide. But
We're going to have to start paying this guy.
I believe so, yeah. He's earned it this week.
So Ashley Sinclair will need to see this presentation because she designed the original logo for the semi-quincentennial that you've adapted, and it's a nice adaptation, so thank you for that too. All right, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. I do have Mr. John Quigley signed up to speak. If you could reintroduce yourself and your address.
Madam Mayor and the Board of Aldermen, my name is John Quigley. I live at 422 Mountain View Drive here in Kernersville, and I signed the card to speak. But after that great presentation, I'm going to tear up the card.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quigley.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else here to speak on the budget this evening? Are you sure? All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Are there any questions, comments, discussion?
I just say great job to Curtis and staff for getting all this together, crunching the numbers like you did. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
I agree with that, and thank you for answering my millions of random questions.
And thank you for asking the questions, because some of it I'm like, I better go back and check. Madam Mayor, let me say that there are 2 updates, I think, in the schedule of fees. We're recommending increasing the fee for a parking violation. It's been $5 for years, and people have a tendency to just kind of chuckle and say, I'll pay the $5. So we're recommending increasing that to $50 and the penalty for late payment from $30 to $50. So that will, they won't chuckle anymore when we tell them they don't need to be parked there for an hour. They'll, over an hour, they'll probably move on after that. So
Do parking fees go to the schools?
I thought they did.
So the
yeah.
majority of the parking
biggest portion
fees
of it. Yeah, we don't get them,
Go
but
to the school?
it's what it does is it saves our officers from going out there every hour and issuing them a $5 parking ticket. So we can issue them one and they'll probably move on.
This is you know, there are a lot of concerns expressed by downtown merchants of people maybe parking for the entire day when the parking areas are designed for shoppers and people running errands and people there for shorter periods of time. So if you have a lot of repeat violations, I'm sure that's the public policy behind that.
We were having, and I don't think we've had it recently, we were having a commercial business activity basically was using the public parking all day for their business, and we kind of worked it out with them to where they wouldn't do that. They're not doing it as much, but there's another one kind of taking their place, I think. So, I mean, we don't go out and just actively look to ticket them. It's usually if we get a call from one of the businesses that says, hey, this car's been parked out here in front of my business all day, and they're over here doing something else at another business that really should provide parking. Then we'll go out and talk to them and give them the opportunity to move it before we ticket them. But we did last year. We went out, the lady's like, I'll just pay you the $5 every day, because it's better for me to do that and be able to park right here at my door and mess up this other person's business than it is to park over at Town Hall. So that probably will solve that problem.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the fees that you wanted to
No,
mention?
the schedule of fees also have out, we've taken out the portion as it relates to the what the season pass and day pass will be for the community pool, as well as the rental of the pool building. That's out of the schedule of fees. I think I talked to you all and said we will get together. We have a pool committee, a pool steering committee. We'll get that committee together in a meeting that's really not focused on the pool itself, but to discuss the proposed fees and come up with a fee schedule. We've got some time to get that back. So we'll get that and get some proposed fees and then bring those back to the board. So the fee schedule has that portion out of it. and the part dealing with the fines has been updated, as well as there was a portion dealing with the rental fee for the cross-country course has also been updated in the ordinance and the schedule of fees that you have.
Thank you. All right, is there any questions, any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the town budget as presented.
A motion by Alderman Savanas, a second by, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, by Alderman Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous. Let me add one thing about the budget, Mr. Pages. So, and back to what Mr. Swisher said about some areas of the town just improving quality of life for residents. You know, there's a lot of conversation you hear about the expense of housing, but there's also a lot of changes in the price of weddings and the affordability of weddings. And the Senior Botanical Gardens started off as a privately owned nonprofit. It was not a government entity, but it was requested and then worked out for the town to take the operations and to include that as a town property and a town park for people's enjoyment. And at that point in time, Mr. Pages announced, Ernie Pages, our Director of Parks and Rec, announced that he was going to work very hard to have a schedule for fees for weddings. And if you look at the fee schedule, there's a lot about permitting and fire and police or whatever that may or may not apply to people who are not developers. But the wedding schedule, the rental schedule for the building does have an ability for all kinds of price ranges for a wedding, from something very straightforward and small on a weekday to something very elaborate over the weekend. So it is probably the most varied price schedule you could have for a venue rental that anyone could see. So we really appreciate your work, Ernie, on that, and your staff. And then in a prior year's budget, as one of the things to just help with community amenities and rentals, the desirability of renting the gardens for weddings, there was a proposal to redo a conference room to make it a groom's dressing room and an upstairs area that was really poorly used to be a bride's dressing area, bridal suite. And both of those renovations are complete, and they're absolutely beautiful. So I appreciate the hard work that our staff has put into, when there is something included in the budget, implementing it for the enjoyment of the citizens and for the furtherance of that small town and hometown atmosphere and feeling that we enjoy in Kernersville, even as it grows. So appreciate that. Is there any other comments on the budget, or should we move on?
Madam Mayor, just one comment.
Turn on your microphone, Bill.
I'm sorry. Just one comment. The recreation area, Ivy Redmond, and particularly the recreation building, if you've been out there any on weekends in the last number of months, you've seen a lot of utilization, and that essentially has become a center for profitable operations. It's not just an expenditure for our use, but the utilization is a lot easier to come by during the week than it is on weekends, because things such as cheerleading camps and things of that nature are taking place out there. Those things don't just happen. They're recruited, the fee structure is correct, and high utilization. Curtis, along those lines, we have, I believe, some longer-term plans to perhaps replicate the recreation and event center that's out there down the line. Could you just real briefly, generally address that?
We do. We have a long-range plan, and I guess how long-range depends on some outside funding sources. But when the current event center was built, you can see the backside of it, there's basically a different color of the paint. The plan is at some point to expand that building off the back going toward the Fieldcrest neighborhood. That's not a cheap venture at all. So unless we get some outside funding, significant outside funding, that's several years down the road before that will happen. There was $35 million in the state budget for the expansion of that building 2 years ago, but the budget never got passed. So we lost that $35 million. So we're hopeful that in some future budget, we'll get some money in that budget for the expansion of that building. Depending on how much we get, kind of how determines how much we expand it. Optimally, we would like to add 60, 70,000 more square feet to it, basically kind of just open space, so that we can attract some events that require more open square footage for those events. But we do have a plan for it. Again, it's depending on the funding, and it really depends on a lot of outside funding to do that. But we're hopeful that, you know, we'll see that sometime in the future.
And I just wanted to mention that recently the Winston-Salem Urban Area Transportation Committees, the Technical Coordinating Committee and the Tactical Transportation Advisory Committee from all over the county held its only the second out of Winston-Salem meeting, my understanding is, ever. The first one was a retirement plan for Mayor Mike Horn from Louisville, and it was held in Louisville, his retirement banquet. But the Winston-Salem area thought enough about our event center, recreation and events center, that people from all over Forsyth County came to have those meetings, and it worked just absolutely beautifully from a technical standpoint. The mayor addressed that group on behalf of the town, and so it gives us some flexibility to offer things intergovernmentally across the urban area of Winston-Salem. So we're very proud of our town and of the mayor for what was presented out there. Thank you.
So thank you for everybody, the department heads, staff, Curtis, Marcus, all for the hours you put into the budget to resolve the concerns and present something that we could review tonight. We appreciate your efforts in that regard. All right, is there anything else relating to the budget? All right, moving on to the public session. Our first item is speakers from the floor. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to the board on an item not covered in the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the item B. 2B, consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 11. The one of many, as Mr. Swisher has promised, budget amendments in the course of a year. Mr. Swisher?
And probably the last one since we're in June. But definitely not the last one of the calendar year, I expect. So as you can see, there are 14 different changes to the expenditures in each department. I'm not going to cover all of those. I'll kind of highlight the common theme that you'll see in those. There are a lot of changes for insurance cost, being that during the open enrollment period, an employee selected a different plan than what they'd currently been on. If you go from employee-only coverage, it's about $600, $700 a year, to family coverage, that's about $7,000 a year, of which we pick up about $3,500 of it. So there's where your insurance costs come in. We saw a lot of that as some of the folks started to have babies and started adding those to the plan, change their plan. So most of the insurance changes that you see in the departments or for that reason are due to plan changes. You see some changes in the salaries and wages. One of those is the fire department, where we had the guys come in earlier than they were budgeted. The 6 new firemen started earlier. We also had some folks come in to train those. You see an adjustment in HR and public services. There was a payout to the 2 department heads that left those departments. So we had to pay them out. It came out of salaries and wages, and that was the vacation they had accrued. There's also a change in the admin department in salaries and wages. That was for my pay increase. Last year, the budget had been adopted, so this is the budget amendment to add that in. There's also in several of the departments, I know it's in police and I think maybe fire, a change because of GASB 96. That is an accounting principle, and it's the way we have to account for software. As a subscription, we have to recognize the full cost of the subscription, and then we also show the expense of that. But the true expense is just an accounting is all it is. The true expense is just what we pay yearly for it. But if it's a 3-year subscription to that software, we have to recognize all 3 years of it. And so that's what those are. There is a big one in governing body. I've had several of you ask me, what are we paying the city of High Point for? Years ago, actually when I was the mayor, so it would have been 2004, we entered into an agreement with the city of High Point in regards to the property that is between Salem Parkway and Interstate 40. If you're coming west, if you're going west, you go past Sandy Ridge, and it's where Salem Parkway splits off and Interstate 40 split off. All of the land in there, the agreement was that High Point would provide water and sewer to it, and the town would service it, and we will split the tax base revenue generated, or the tax revenue generated. High Point sometimes is a little bit late in getting us the invoice, so we didn't budget for it. For all of it in fiscal year 25-26, we budgeted, I think, $190,000. It's about $440,000, so that's what that $258,000 is for. That agreement is for a period of either 40 or 50 years. I think it's 50, but it could be 40, but it's 40 or 50 years. So, and it's for, right now is what is part of it are the apartments down past the hospital, and all of the new commercial industrial development right off Mesa Grove Road. So that is, as that increases, I think they're looking at doing a new building in that industrial park here soon. So that will also increase what we pay them.
Piedmont Commerce Center.
Piedmont Commerce Center, thank you. I could not remember the name of that. We made the transfer to the community pool infrastructure construction expenses. We made that over $1.8 million over to the capital project ordinance fund for that in Parks and Rec. We had some overage on the roof over here at the old library. They had to put a roof on the roof that you can see on the outside. We replaced that as well, because when we got up there and started replacing the flat roof, we realized that the other roof was in pretty bad shape too. So that is in here as well under Public Services, number 12, the General Services Division. That's about $62,000. And then Central Maintenance Division, of course, we had some overage in parts and accessories, contracted services for vehicle repair, things like that. There is another big one, not necessarily as big as some of them. I'm trying to find it where we had it's in Public Services somewhere, because somebody was interested to point out, if I can find it. I don't know where it's at. It's in here, but it's an adjustment of about $50,000, I think. No, $20,000 is number 8. Street Division to cover higher than anticipated street lighting cost. I had several citizens ask me, what's the street lighting cost? So what that is all the street lights on public roads, not DOT roads, but public roads, the town pays the power bill. Our total street lighting expense for 26-27 is projected to be about $780,000. That's increasing about $170,000 a year. So we are, excuse me, we are anticipating that to top $1 million in about 2 years. And that's what that's for. You'll probably see another budget amendment next year about this time to add more money to that line item for 26-27. because it's hard to project, Duke's rate increase, how many poles are going in. We're trying to work with the developers to put in streetlights a little further apart so we don't have as many in a subdivision, save some money on that cost. So with everything said, we also have some revenues that we're recognizing to help offset the appropriation from fund balance. When it's all said and done, we're recommending an appropriation from the general fund balance of about $515,000. That will bring our appropriation this year to 5.3 million, but about 4.6 million of that is from carryover costs that rolled into the fund balance last year, rolled back out this year, and we've appropriated. So right now we're about $600,000 or $700,000 out of the actual unassigned unrestricted fund balance.
One of the reasons so much gets rolled over is it takes a long lead time, as Mr. Swisher had mentioned, for ordering replacement vehicles. So if you place the order and it takes them 16 months to process your order and build the piece of equipment, then you allocated for it in that one 12-month period of the budget, and it's going to be ready in a couple months, so you roll that expense over. So it seems like a lot of money rolled over, but it's because of that kind of delay in filling orders and that sort of thing.
Correct. And some of it is also with construction. If we borrow a certain amount of money to start construction, then don't start it, we'll carry it over. The good part is if we borrowed the money, we get to draw interest on it. So that helps. We're only allowed by state law to draw so much before we have to start not paying it back, but claiming taxes on it, so to speak. But we do get to draw interest on the money that we've borrowed for investments or for equipment and so forth. But usually we get it turned out pretty quickly, unless it is a piece of equipment or infrastructure project.
Okay, any questions about budget amendment number 11? Do I have a motion to approve? Got a motion by Alderman Apple.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Gorham. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, we are to item C, consideration of an amendment to an employment agreement with the town manager and an ordinance setting the town manager's compensation. As you know, we are a council manager form of government, so we do have the Board of Aldermen, and then the Board of Aldermen has the authority under the town charter to hire a town manager and set his compensation and evaluate his performance. We do the same with the town attorney. All other employees of the town of Kernersville are evaluated, and their performance evaluations and that sort of thing is done by the town manager and HR and the department heads. So it's a pretty unique position for the two employees. So as such, whereas you give reviews and set compensation within the budget for departments for everybody else, the town manager's employment agreement and his compensation is enacted by ordinance and resolution at the Board of Aldermen meeting. So we did have an opportunity to evaluate the performance of the town manager. We've decided we'd like him to stay around for another year and probably more than that, but this is an agreement for 1 year for his 18th year of employment with the town as the town manager. And so that is why it's on the agenda, and that's why you don't see the compensation and employment agreements for, say, a fire chief or a police chief. It's just for town managers and town attorneys. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've got an motion to adopt to set the town manager's compensation. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, then I have a motion to adopt the town manager's employment agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Thompson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gorham. All in favor? It's unanimous. Are there any comments?
Keep up the good work.
Pleasure to work with you, dear Curtis.
Any others? I have to say, I've been the mayor about the same amount of time as Curtis has been the town manager, and it is wonderful to work with him. So thank you for all of the early mornings, late nights, and weekend hours you put into into making sure that all the unusual circumstances that occur in a town throughout the year are addressed, and we run this town as smoothly as possible. We appreciate you. All right, we will move on now to the consent agenda. These matters are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the matter will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the following item. A is consideration of a lease with the Kernersville Women's Club. And as you're aware, that's a building along Salisbury Street that they maintain and use for their meetings, and they rent. B is consideration of appointments to volunteer boards and commissions. C, approval of minutes for the March 25 closed session. D, approval of minutes for the April 29 closed session. E, approval of minutes for the April 29 regular meeting. F, approval of minutes for the May 5th regular meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to see something removed from the consent agenda? See none, do any board members have anything you'd like to see removed from the consent agenda? Seeing no concerns there, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion by Alderman Savannah, second by Alderman Pegram. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, that brings us to the town manager's report.
Madam Mayor and Board, you have in your packet a memo from Chief Alderman to myself, and I mentioned it last week that we would add it to the agenda. It is seeking permission for the fire department to apply for the SAFER grant, which is staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. So we've discussed this, I think, probably 6 or 7 months ago. The board funded 6 new positions last year, or this year actually, 25-26, for the rescue truck. At the time we were asking for, we were asking for 6. Chief was asking for 12. I asked for 6. And I came to the board, then the board approved the 6. And we discussed that if we didn't get the 6 other firefighters in the budget for 26-27, we would try to get those through the SAFER grant. We have applied for the SAFER grant in the past and been awarded the grant for positions. The way the grant works is you apply for the grant. If you get approved for the grant, FEMA will pay for 100% of the cost for year 1, possibly year 2. Usually if it's a 3-year grant, the town has to pick up the full cost in year 3, but if it's a 4-year grant, we pick it up usually in year 4. So it's what we would do is apply for the grant. If it is accepted and we're awarded the grant, we would bring it back to you all for final approval. We would then know what year it is for. It probably would most likely, I'm guessing, Chief, starting 27, 28. Yeah, so it wouldn't start this fiscal year, it would be the next fiscal year. So, you know, we've always looked in the past whether or not to apply for them based on whether or not we will need that staffing in the future. We don't want to apply for it, have it, and not really need it. So this is an opportunity. We know we need the staffing. We're going to get the truck. In fact, we have the reserve rescue truck that the board approved is in, and has gear on it, and it's been staffed and been used. So it's there if you want to go by 42 and take a look at it. It's there in the bay. So it's something that we know we're going to need the staff in the future. So we're recommending the board to approve applying for the grant. And of course, again, if we get awarded the grant, we'll bring it back to the board for final approval. And we'll know then what the term of the grant is as well. And if it's something at the time the board says, no, we don't want to proceed further with it, then we can do that at that time.
All right, do I have any questions, or do I have a motion to authorize the town manager to apply for the FEMA grant?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Apple, second by Alderman Sabanis. All in favor? It's unanimous. And that's town manager through fire department or whoever, of course.
And the only other thing I have, I'd like to thank you all for the contract and employment agreement. I've thoroughly enjoyed my 18 and some odd months, years with the town. I enjoy working with each and every one of you. You are a great board. It's an honor to work for you all in the town. Thoroughly enjoy it, and I look forward to continuing on for the next many years, I hope. So thank you again. I appreciate your vote of confidence.
Thank you, Curtis. Mr. Powell, do you have anything tonight?
No report tonight.
Thank you. All right, comments by the mayor and board of aldermen. Ms. Sabanis.
Nothing this time.
Thank you. Mr. Apple.
Nothing this time.
General Gorham.
Yes, just want to continue to extend the invitation to Juneteenth. It'll be coming up on June the 19th. It's a Friday night. We hope everybody in the community will come out and partake of the celebration. And as I said last time, we will be showcasing the Buffalo Soldiers, which consists of the 8th and 9th Cavalry and the 24th and 25th Infantry. So come out and let's have a good time. And I think we might have some line dancing this time, from what I'm hearing. That sounds very exciting. Come and get your dance on.
Nothing better than dancing out on a summer night in Harmon Park. And the drone show. So the drone show was very popular last year, so we're excited about that as well. Mr. Pegram.
Yes, just wanted to reiterate and thank everybody for all their hard work in getting this budget through. Department heads and Curtis, appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Thompson.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. If there's no further business before the board, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion by Alderman Sabanis, second by Alderman Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us.